Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Port Charles 411, which is a little bit different than we said.
Yeah, we had a change.
Sometimes scheduling stinks and things happen. We were doing so good. We were like 3 weeks ahead on our 411s and then oops.
Yeah, but we were due for some type of mix-up, so.
Hey, it has been well over a year and we've never had the situation. So
exactly.
On the fly, we decided we're going to talk about ELQ.
Which was all Shannon's brilliant idea, so good job.
Stop.
It was. We were brainstorming and I could not think of anything.
I couldn't either, and it was only because I was watching yesterday's episode this morning, and as Valentin was talking about something, I was like, oh, we can totally talk about the history of ELQ.
Perfect.
So we are using General Hospital fandom, of course, as our...
I was impressed with them because they're updated all the way through the fact that Valentin took over.
They sure are. So we're going to give a little bit of the history, talk about some of the other fun stuff, and some of the people that have been involved.
Yeah, I'm going to end up
ELQ.
interrupting you because some of the people I did not realize had anything to do with it.
Yeah, that's okay. And I'm going to probably interrupt you right back. So ELQ, I know a lot of people, and I was one of them, thought it stood for Edward Lila Quartermain, but it's Edward Lewis Quartermain International, formerly ELQ Industries and ELQ Enterprises, is a multinational conglomerate headquartered in Port Charles, owned by the wealthy Quartermains. It's one of the largest businesses in the region. They are continually one of the sponsors of the annual Nurses Ball charity event, so that's this week. According to the promos, it's Tuesday. I almost said it's Monday and we're recording this, so it could have already taken place too. And its rival company with nearby Chandler Enterprises and Buchanan Enterprises.
Mm-hmm. See, I like how they used to tie all three together. I love it.
So in 1978, Edward Quartermain arrived in Port Charles, having followed his son Alan and brought his family company ELQ. In 1980, Laura Weber, a.k.a. Laura Spencer, a.k.a. Laura Collins, received a job as a secretary for Edward at ELQ. I didn't know that.
No.
Edward also enlists Luke Spencer to assist him and his niece Alexandria in search for
dun, dun, dun.
the Ice Princess, the world's largest uncut diamond. It was working for Edward at ELQ when Luke and Laura finally realized their feelings and couldn't live without each other. Oh, little matchmaker Edward. In 1984, Edward discovered what it was like to be broke when his daughter-in-law Monica and her new flame Sean Donnelly organized a hostile takeover.
Did not know that Monica dated Sean.
Sean leaked word of a merger between Donnelly Enterprises and the Cassadines. Edward's illegitimate son, Jimmy Lee Holt, decided to sell the family stock and invest it all. Monica had second thoughts and tried to warn the family that the merger was fake, but they didn't listen, and the Quartermains lost everything. However, Edward's wife, Lila Quartermain, manages to bring their fortune back with a new business called Pickle Lila.
And I didn't realize that was that recent, which I know to people that are way younger than us, that's not recent. But to me, Pickle Lila was like in the 50s kind of thing. It was not in the 80s.
Well, the show started in 63, so...
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was something we would have never seen.
Right, exactly. Until, which you will get to later.
Right.
Monica's husband, Alan, later faked his death to get back at Sean and his wife. I'm sorry.
I mean, what else do you do whenever someone makes you mad other than fake your death?
Sean, being faced with a murder charge, finally returned the Quartermain's money. When Edward was presumed dead in 1988, he left all of his assets to his grandson, Ned. Alan tried to keep Ned and his sister Tracy from getting their greedy hands on ELQ. He appealed to the board members to vote his way, and Ned did the same. To be fair, Ned offered Alan a test. Each of them would invest $2 million, and the one who got the bigger return would get ELQ. That's smart.
It is smart.
We had something like that in my senior year in high school. It was for economics.
Oh, okay.
and we had to invest in the stock market. And whoever reached $1 million first got there.
Wow. That's a fun class.
Like one.
How come our kids don't learn that stuff? That's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah. The tug of war continued with Alan and Tracy taking turns running the company, resigning, letting the other one take over, and resigning again. Alan finally turned over the reins to Tracy once and for all in order to stop his then wife, Lucy Coe, from constantly nagging him about ELQ. That is totally something that we should talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Ned was named the new CEO. In 1990, Tracy's former beau, David McAllister, wound up murdered, and Tracy was the prime suspect. She asked Scott Baldwin to defend her, which he only agreed to do after he was granted the position as general counsel at ELQ. Smart move.
Yes.
In 1991, ELQ was taking losses that concerned the Quartermains, but Ned assured them that the ship called the SS Tracy was docking with machinery that would revitalize their cannery and rebuild the Quartermain money. We talked about the cannery when we were playing the game.
Yes.
Okay.
See, it all makes sense.
However, an environmental group called the Greenbelts was rallying to protest the arrival of the ship, which they claimed was carrying unsafe chemicals. Isn't that what Mac was protesting?
Oh, wow.
When Mac arrived.
First came, yeah.
I think that's what Mac was protesting. We'll have to go back and listen to our own recap of him. The ship exploded in the dock, en route to the dock, and Ned was furious as he suspected the ship was sabotaged. Following this, Alan and Monica realized neither Ned nor Tracy could run the family business and hired Paul Hornsby to save ELQ.
Ugh.
However, Paul was a part of a drug cartel that simply wanted Tracy's stock shares. A few months later, when Edward was revealed to be alive, he and Ned are successful at getting ELQ back after blackmailing Paul into handing over his shares of ELQ. In 1996, Sonny Corinthos invests in ELQ, Jasper Jacks gets a spot on the ELQ board, and neither of these make Edward happy, especially when Jacks teams up with Tracy to take over ELQ. Ned's wife Lois was especially angry when Ned resumed his post as CEO of ELQ to help fend off Tracy and Jacks. And that's why they separated, as Brooklyn now knows. In 1998, Edward promises his grandson AJ the CEO position of ELQ if he can bring AJ's son Michael home to the Quartermains. This is when Michael was a baby.
Baby. He was so cute.
Brand spanking new. So let's do some math.
No, don't do it because it messes you up.
If AJ succeeds, Ned will be out of a job. Edward is forced to eat his words when AJ is able to bring Michael into the Quartermain fold by marrying Michael's mother, Carly. AJ threatens to leave his new family if Edward doesn't fork over the CEO position. So AJ is appointed CEO and Ned leaves, telling Edward that he will not come in and save the family again.
How many times has he made that threat?
Sorry, did not see the eye roll that I just did, especially when the whole thing blows up in his face. In 2000, Edward kicks AJ out of the CEO position when he learns that AJ had burned down Sonny's warehouse for losing Michael. With ELQ without a CEO, Ned will not come back because remember, he's sticking to his words. Edward makes an odd move in courting a corporate raider, Jasper Jacks. Edward hopes that Ned will swoop in and save the company like he had done previously when Jacks tried to buy out ELQ, but Ned remains true to his promise of not returning. Edward has a stroke of luck when Jacks forgets about ELQ to go after a drug company to obtain medication for Lila's distant cousin, Chloe Morgan, from Helena Cassadine. Jack sells his shares of ELQ, which had come from AJ and Tracy, to Edward. Edward then takes over as CEO of ELQ. In 2001, Edward is outraged when he is voted out of the CEO position in favor of his granddaughter, Sky Chandler Quartermain. So, Sky Chandler Quartermain, Chandler, as in Chandler Enterprises, from the very beginning. Later that year, when Jack sells controlling interest of ELQ to Lila, Edward hopes she'll make him CEO again. But Lila tells him that he will be co-CEO with Sky. And Edward has no choice but to accept Lila's decision because she
ran things.
Yes.
She definitely ran things.
He listened to his wife. She was the only one that...
Oh, yeah. The only one that could rein him in.
No,
Edward.
Crazy. You will be co-CEO with Sky. And I will not have another word about it. I have no idea if that's what she said, but I can just picture it. When Edward fakes a stroke in 2002, Lila, uncertain of Edward's chances of recovery, appoints Ned CEO of ELQ. Ned intends to use ELQ to go after mobster Sonny Corinthos, much to Edward's dismay. In 2003, AJ once again gets his chance to run ELQ when he becomes CEO after Ned is falsely accused of rape. However, AJ later empties the Quartermain bank accounts and leaves town with Lydia, leaving Edward to step in as CEO once again. Skye is later booted off the ELQ board by Edward after learning that she is in fact not a Quartermain. When the ELQ-owned Port Charles Hotel burned down thanks to faulty When the ELQ-owned Port Charles Hotel burns down thanks to faulty wiring, Edward wants to take responsibility for the fire, but Tracy convinces him that it will be best for ELQ if he remains quiet.
That's awful, by the way.
Right. While Edward recovers from a heart attack that nearly killed him, Edward's grandson, Justice Ward, convinces Edward that he should act senile to avoid responsibility for
Which
the
is
fire.
also awful, and Justice, I didn't remember him being quite that manipulative.
Tracy takes advantage of the situation and goes after ELQ because obviously if he's senile, can't be running the company. Eventually, an arson report relieves the family of responsibility for the fire, and a battle for control over ELQ breaks out between Tracy and Edward, with Tracy's son Dylan holding the deciding vote. Dylan is forced to side with his mom, and Tracy is named CEO. In 2005, Tracy's...
Wait.
Yeah.
How old would Dylan have been then?
Probably 18.
Okay. If he would have been 18, then okay. Because to me, he was littler, and he can't be voting. No, because he was born in like 95. I know they up you, but in real life, absolutely not. But okay, if they upped him to 18, then...
Because that would have been Scott Clifton, and that was when he was dating Georgie and everything, right?
Yeah, I guess they still didn't seem that old. They seemed like younger teens then, but that would make sense.
Okay.
Sorry. I just was...
No, it's okay.
I was just wondering how we're buying Danny's stocks until he turns 18, but we're letting Dylan vote at 12. Right. Pretty much.
Right. Do you want to hear my whole thought on that?
Go ahead.
That I should have thought about?
Oh, what?
So this kind of goes back to Monday's recap.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Valentin caused the accident so that Jason wound up in a coma, so that he could manipulate Sam, so that he could get access to those shares.
Oh.
Exonerate Brando.
All right. I will take that.
Yep. I could have saved that for Mondays, but right now I feel like I just need to, it fits all of this. So
good job.
Yep.
Gold star for Shannon.
In 2005, Tracy's husband Luke agrees to help Tracy maintain her position as CEO of ELQ for 3 months, which will be long enough to solidify the position. When it's time to vote the new CEO of ELQ, Luke doesn't support his wife, and she loses out to mobster Lorenzo Alcazar. Tracy managed to regain control later that year. In summer 2006, ELQ faces several lawsuits after a subsidiary of the company, Enduro,
go ahead,
manufactured and produced faulty condoms, which causes the pregnancies of Elizabeth Weber by Edward's grandson, Jason Morgan, and Luke's daughter, Lulu Spencer, by Dylan Quartermain. Maxie Jones also uses the faulty condoms as an excuse to trick Lucky Spencer into thinking she was pregnant.
I didn't remember that all went together like that, but that was pretty genius.
Can we do an entire episode about the faulty condoms?
Seriously, because Maxie, as much as you should never, ever, ever do that, it was pretty genius that she jumped right in on there and was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm pregnant too, because these condoms don't work.
Yeah, don't know. In 2011, Edward pitches the idea of having Michael intern at ELQ. Jason tells him that Michael already has a job working for Sonny, but it's up to Michael to make the decision. Not giving up, Edward offers Michael's girlfriend, Abby, a well-paying job at ELQ, under the provision that she gets Michael to work there alongside her. Edward is delighted when Michael accepts his offer, much to Sonny and Carly's dismay. Abby enjoys her work at ELQ, but Michael does not feel the same way and quits shortly afterwards. Later, Tracy reaches out to Edward when mobster Anthony Zaccara threatens to inform the authorities and the Solito family that she secretly funneled her ex-husband Gino Solito's money, that's a tough name, into ELQ years before.
All right. In 2012, Edward dies and wills 60% of his stock to his living grandchildren.
And that's when the actor died, so he legit died.
Yeah. We're not bringing him back. Wills 60% of his stock to his living grandchildren, currently 10% each to AJ Quartermain, Skye Chandler Quartermain, Dylan Quartermain, Ned Quartermain, Jason Morgan, even though he was missing and presumed dead at the time.
Jeez.
30% to his living great-grandchildren, currently 5% each to Michael Corinthos, Lila Ray Alcazar, Brooklyn Quartermain, Maya Ward. Her mother Faith was never mentioned as to whether she inherited or is deceased. I would assume she's deceased if she didn't inherit then. I don't feel like Edward wouldn't have given her anything. Danny Morgan and Kiki Jerome, initially thought to be a biological Quartermain, then proven otherwise. And 5% each to Edward's daughter-in-law Monica Quartermain and the longtime Quartermain maid Alice Gunderson. Edward's daughter Tracy Quartermain does not inherit any stock, only the last jar of her mother's pickle Lila relish. And Tracy mentions that Edward's son Jimmy Lee Holt had been written out of their father's will years before. AJ wants to be CEO of the company. He has voting support from Michael Skye, Lila Ray, and Monica. Tracy has voting support from Dylan, Ned, Brooklyn, Maya, and Alice. Both sides are tied at 41%, initially making Sam McCall the deciding factor. She has controlling interest in Jason's and Danny's shares. She decides to split her shares to make both sides at 50%. To break the tie, secondary common shareholders, initially non-voting, have the deciding vote. It turns out that Lucy Coe, former daughter-in-law of Edward, has 1% that Edward didn't get back before he passed away. I didn't remember her having 1% back then. Like now that they bring it up again, it like refreshes that, but before they said it, I had not remembered that. After Tracy agrees to the terms to underwrite the nurses' ball, lets Lucy move into the Quartermain mansion, and makes Lucy co-CEO of ELQ with her, Lucy gives her support to Tracy. Soon after becoming co-CEO, Lucy has a psychotic break and is confined to Ferncliff's asylum after attacking police detective John McBain, believing that he is vampire Caleb Morley. AJ and Michael then obtain proof that Tracy had funneled mob money from her deceased husband, Gino Solito, you're right, that is her name, through ELQ.
It's kind of fun once you get it, though, like Gino Solito, but it's hard to get there.
And blackmailed her into resigning and naming AJ CEO. The government seized the assets of ELQ and then prompts AJ and Tracy for a fight for control. Tracy then remembers that she inherited her mother's pickle Lila relish, which gives her the idea to save the company by marketing the relish for sale again. Meanwhile, AJ, Michael, and the newly hired Duke Lavery have the same idea. Both sides scramble to find the recipe to the relish before the other. AJ and GH have lab tech Ellie Trout identify the ingredients for the recipe, and Tracy steals the recipe. She gives orders to mass produce the relish so that she can revitalize the company and vote AJ out as CEO with the assistance of the mystery Quartermain heir. Dun, dun, dun. While talking to his ex-wife Carly Jacks, AJ suspects that she possibly knows about another Quartermain heir due to her reaction when he mentions that they know all the heirs. Carly, however, won't give him any information. AJ's cousin Ned was listening in and tells his mother Tracy about it. Tracy then asks her ex-husband Luke Spencer to ask his niece Carly for information about the heir. She only knows that the previously unknown grandson of Edward, Robert Frank, had mentioned to her years before that he had a daughter named Lauren. Tracy then hires private investigator Damian Spinelli to find Lauren Frank for her. Tracy is forced to sign over ELQ to AJ for embezzling mob money into ELQ. However, Damian Spinelli defects to AJ's side when he decides to not betray his girlfriend Ellie Trout a second time. Tracy hires Luke to track down Lauren Jerome, Franco's perceived daughter, and AJ has Spinelli track her down as well. Luke gets to Franco's illegally adopted mother's place first. That was like no easy way to write that.
No. We need a chart. We'll do a video.
Right? Here's our flow chart of how all these people are related. Illegally adopted mother's place first, and she decides to side with Tracy. She gives Spinelli an address to a woman that's woman's father had a debt to repay to Luke. Again, flow chart. Spinelli talks to the woman and wastes time there, while Luke is talking to Ava Jerome, Lauren's mother. Luke reveals to Spinelli that it was indeed him that sent Spinelli on the wrong path, and he assumes that Luke found Lauren. AJ and Tracy go on the chew. That was so weird. I'm sorry, but it was so weird.
It was a nice crossover, but yeah.
It just felt unnatural. Anyway, AJ and Tracy go on the chew to have a battle of the condiments. The food experts on the chew, various personnel, and even AJ's girlfriend Elizabeth get food poisoning thanks to Robert Frank, who was responsible. With Franco now revealed to be alive and the reveal of Kiki Jerome as Franco's daughter, the grandchildren now each have 10% of stock and 5% goes to each of the great-grandchildren. Tracy decides to try to go through with the takeover.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because I'm looking at something and I'm like, that math does not add up. Why is this person here? But boom.
There you go.
Sorry.
That's all right. Tracy decides to try to go through with the takeover and summons a shareholders meeting due to her majority of shareholders, with her original 42.5% and Ava Jerome's proxy of 10%. Diane Miller presides over the shareholder meeting and helps with the online voting for shareholders not present, which I thought was funny. There was no mention of that either. Ned's like, I'll call this person. I'll call this person. Wouldn't you have sent out an email with the link if there was a way to vote online?
Yeah.
Would have made a little more sense. And then he could have got all these email back that were like, ping, ping, ping. Nope, we don't have rights to our shares because we sold them. That would be like Ned, Dylan, Maya, who couldn't attend the meeting. It was thought that Tracy would win with Franco's shares, with Ava voting giving Tracy 52.5% and Kiki Jerome aligning with AJ due to the fact that her mother and her aunt called the corporate meeting. The vote is taken. AJ Quartermain now retains his position as CEO with the 52.5% as a 5% shareholder flipped over, Alice Gunderson. I miss Alice.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Who voted for her with Valentin? I don't remember anyone.
And she would not have sold her shares.
Nope.
Maybe I'll get into it in a minute because it does talk about how things got realigned some way, so maybe it'll make sense then.
Okay.
AJ makes Alice an honorary vice president and head of security.
Oh.
Then kicks Ava and Tracy out of his boardroom. Connie Falconeri then overhears Sunny and Morgan Corinthos talking to each other about Kiki not being Franco's biological daughter. Connie, trying to save her paper, the press, from going under, wants to break the story, so she goes to her friend Tracy for help in getting proof. Tracy lets Connie into Ava and Franco's bedroom, where Connie finds Kiki's birth certificate, which lists Silas Clay as the father. Connie prints the story Kiki Not a Q on the front page of the paper, and the next morning letting the whole town know that the ELQ vote was invalid, since Kiki didn't have the right to vote since she is not a Quartermain and therefore not included in Edward's will. Without Kiki being a stockholder, Edward's living great-grandchildren are back to having 6% each instead of 5%. The new percentage adds up to a 50-50 tie between AJ and Tracy. Tracy then goes to Lucy to secure her 1% of the non-voting stock, which she needs to be the tiebreaker. Lucy gives Tracy her 1% and breaks the tie. So I guess I really should have remembered that she had 1% because it was brought up quite a few times back in the day.
Well, because I remember that's when, because they were both courting her. Like, they were both.
I remember that for the Pickle Lila stuff. I don't remember it beforehand, but it probably just didn't matter as much back then. In 2014, Tracy once again becomes CEO and AJ went back to drinking, soon becoming a prime suspect in Connie Falconeri's murder. After AJ was murdered by Sunny Corinthos, Fluke starts taking an interest in ELQ.
For those of you at home unfamiliar with Fluke, that is fake Luke.
I just love that they named him that, like, officially. Fluke started taking an interest in ELQ, wanting to use it to fund his drug operation. When Fluke wanted to marry Tracy to gain control of ELQ, Ned Quartermain becomes suspicious because of Luke's past misdeeds. Ned gained even more suspicion when he and Michael discovered Fluke was making passes at Kiki Jerome. And we talked about how gross that was a couple weeks ago. Fluke succeeded in marrying Tracy, forcing Ned and Michael to quickly convince other stockholders to remove Tracy as CEO. Not wanting the position to leave the family, Michael stepped in and Tracy vowed revenge. While acting as CEO, Michael hired his brother Morgan Corinthos to oversee ELQ's waterfront restoration project. According to Michael, ELQ had been working with the community to revitalize the area, building new high-rises and restoring homes such as the Brownstone. I vaguely remember that, but not as much as I thought that I would have. In 2015, Nicholas Cassadine stole ELQ stock and becomes the CEO. However, in 2016, Drew Kane, believed to be Jason Morgan, becomes the majority shareholder, controlling 50.5% after blackmailing Nicholas. He then decided to give Michael back the company, and then he gave the rest of the shares back to the original owners, as Edward's will stated. So yeah, it should have gone back to Alice, or Alice's family if she's deceased if he gave it back to the original people. In 2019, after Oscar died, his will stated that his shares would go to Hank Archer, a manipulative cult leader and sexual predator. The family contested this action with the shares landing in probate court limbo. However, when Hank was killed shortly after, Nell Michael's ex shows up as the newly widowed Mrs. Hank Archer, with the ability to vote his shares. I didn't really understand how she was allowed to vote that either. I would like to know what the real legalities behind that is, because you don't know that they're actually yours, so how do you get to vote that? For another day, just saying. When she attempts to manipulate the family into more money and control, Brooklyn handles that situation. That was like whenever we first saw Brooklyn come back and put her in her place. In 2020, Valentin Cassadine, Nicholas's uncle, becomes the CEO after he took over 50% of ELQ shares. He had bought out the shares of Brooklyn, Oscar, Sky, Lila, Maya, and the proxy control over the shares of Danny and Scout. Lucy voted her 1% tie-breaking share with Valentin, as he is also the financier of her cosmetic company. With controlling shares, Valentin directs the company to no longer fund GH after mismanagement and Nell's lawsuit. And that's where it ends. Gotta watch every day to find out what's next.
And so the page I have is just who's in control, and we just talked about this. And it says in control as of April 2020, Valentin, Lucy, Michael, Alice, Jason, Dylan, Monica, and Ned.
Yeah.
And not in control is Scout, Danny, and Jake, because they're minors.
Right. So I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. And then I have the subsidiaries, which is LMB Records, which I feel like that makes sense. Donley Shipping, which I did not know that Sean Donley had a shipping company, and I'm not sure how ELQ
is it still in existence?
Would be. It just says once owned by Sean Donley.
Okay.
Jax Cosmetics, obviously cosmetic company founded by Jax. Don't know why they'd have any part of that. Coco Cosmetics, cosmetic company owned and funded by former ELQ co-CEO Lucy Coe. Chloe Morgan Designs, which that's not around anymore, right?
I don't know.
That would be really good if they found a way to bring that back.
Right, especially with
in the magazine.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Port Charles Hotel, which we know is gone because you talked about it burning down.
Mm-hmm.
Pickle Lila, Pickle Eddie, Lila's Kids Summer Camp, which we didn't get to see this year, and the Brownstone, which I didn't know they had any part. Like I knew they had revitalizing it, but it never occurred to me that they were part of that.
And then there's just a huge list of people that,
like I said, we're not going to read all that, right? But all the people have come and gone.
Talked about all of them. It'd be interesting to hear.
I think the only surprising one, I remember Edward talking fondly about Laura and like the time that she worked with him, but I guess I didn't realize it was at ELQ.
Which makes sense because
where else would, right? 100%.
But then I have the list of CEOs, which was Edward from 1978 to 89, Alan from 89 to 90, Ned from 90 to 91, Paul Hornsby was 91, back to Ned 91 to 96, back to Edward in 96, back to Ned in 96 to 99, then AJ finally got it 99 to 2000, then back to Edward 2000 to 2001, then Sky 2001 to 2002, then she was with Edward in 2002, back to Edward in 2002, which went back to Ned in 2002 to 2003, AJ 2003, Ned 2003 to 4, Edward back in 04, Tracy 04 to 05, Alcazar was 2005, Tracy was 2005 to 2013. So she might actually be the longest running.
Okay, but no wonder that there is some instability going on. They've been back and forth for the past 20 years as far as who's actually in control.
Oh, 78 was much longer than 20 years, unfortunately.
No, I meant, not when it started. I just mean in the last 20 years is really where it was flip-flopping so much, right?
No, 90.
Oh,
after Alan.
I was thinking it was...
So like 30 years.
I was thinking just back to... Okay, let's
And then Tracy and Lucy were in 2013, back to AJ 13, then back to Tracy 13, 14, and then Michael 14, 15, Nicholas 15, 16, and then Michael 16 to 2020. Then he was on sabbatical, back to Ned for interim, and now Valentin.
I just can't wait to find out why Valentin wants it, because I don't think he's going to ruin it. It wouldn't make any sense.
I don't either.
Good company that makes a ton of money. Why would you throw it away?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't know why.
It's going to be intriguing, that's for sure.
Yes.
And I think I'm right about him causing the accident.
That makes sense. That was just a really big risk, because how do you know if it's an accident that's like, oh, I need a Band-Aid, or if it's an accident that you're dead?
Right.
And I guess he doesn't care about Jason that much, but
right.
if he would have killed him, I don't know that Sam would have signed over.
Right.
Because then he's dead. She doesn't need to see anyone.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Valentin's smart. He knows. I would imagine that he would know just what to do to
probably
make him
or maybe
skid.
He had someone run him off the road so he would know it wasn't. Because I don't see Brando messing it up. I think when they check over the bike, there's not going to be any faulty parts on it.
Right.
Guess we'll find out.
Yep. So that's it. That's the history of ELQ.
I liked it. I'm glad we did that. I didn't know.
Cool. So join us on Monday as we do a recap of this week's shows.
And have a good weekend.
And we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to pier54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review.
And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Pier 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at pier54podcast@gmail.com.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.